There's a really good video on YouTube called Attractive Face or Not. It depends on tongue posture. Totally worth watching. The basic premise is that the position of your tongue can alter the shape of your face for better or worse. And one of the things that struck me when I saw this, I'm like, oh yeah, my sister had braces. And the reason she had braces is because of the way she swallowed. Whenever she swallowed, every time she swallowed, she pushed her tongue against the back of her upper teeth, her front teeth. So over time, it gave her an overbite. And the way they fixed it with the braces, but then they also attached to the braces on the inside were two spikes that faced in and poked her in the tongue whenever she pushed her tongue against them, which got her out of the habit and fixed the problem. But it reinforced this concept I hadn't thought of in a long time. I watched this video just because it was an intriguing phrase. Tongue posture. What does that mean? I just never thought about it. But what he's saying is that there's a lot of evidence that shows that the way what you habitually do with your tongue, which is a very strong muscle, can over time affect the look of your face. And he mentions a book in there called 6 Foot Tiger, 3 Foot Cage, which refers to the upper part of your mouth, or your mouth in general, the 6 foot tiger being your tongue, and the 3 foot cage being your crowded mouth. So apparently, if you don't have good tongue posture, which can form while you're breastfeeding, apparently the motion of breastfeeding is perfect training to train you to swallow correctly, because you have to push your tongue, I guess, against the roof of your mouth and then swallow back from there. And if you were breastfed and didn't then have a pacifier or a bottle afterwards, then you swallow correctly, and then you have good tongue posture. But if you don't do that, then what happens is that when the correct tongue posture is that your tongue is kind of snugged up against the roof of the back of your mouth. The back roof part of the roof of your mouth. So when you say the word sing, where you end that phrase, sing, that's where your tongue should be, basically all the time. Except when you're actually doing something with it, like eating. And that would be correct tongue posture. And what it does is it exerts a slight outward force on your upper teeth, and that counters the slight inward force that your cheeks have on your teeth. But so if you don't have that, then over time your dental arch, that is your front teeth, should be a wide U, and over time it can narrow. And I remember, and another thing that struck me about this is I remember seeing a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in like 25 years. And my first thought when I saw him smile was that his upper dental arch seemed narrower than I remember. And then sometime after that, I noticed that mine did. It seems narrower than I remember when I was younger. And so I thought, this was interesting, but he went into even more detail in this video. It's not just the dental arch of the maxilla, that's the upper part of what your upper teeth are connected to is your maxilla, which is kind of connected also to your cheekbones. So your tongue posture can affect your cheekbones, how forward your front teeth are, and how wide your dental arch is. But it goes even further than that. the lines in your skull, you know how when you see a skull, it looks like it's got cracks all over it? Those aren't cracks. Those are spaces where new bone can be made. Muscles in your face and your tongue can pull on bone and change your facial structure over time. So, for example, if you eat super soft food, then your jaw muscle becomes weak and doesn't pull on the bones in the right way, and so your chin can come in and your jaw can become less pronounced. The jaw line can become less squared. So it changes your face. Like what you do with your muscles changes your physical bone structure of your face over time. I had never thought of this before, but of course, facial bones can change with gentle, consistent pressure. You can't change them with quick, sudden, or intense force, but you can change them with gentle pressure over time. That's why braces work. They set the braces, and they kind of hurt a little bit when you first put them on, apparently. And then after a while, you kind of get used to them, and they stop hurting. And then you have to go back to the orthodontist, and they tighten them up, or they make it so that they put even more pressure. And it's just a gentle little bit of pressure, but it kind of hurts a little bit. And then after a while, that pain goes away, and then they tighten them up again until they get your teeth in the position that they want. So we already know that you can change the shape of, at least of your teeth, with gentle pressure, but it's also true with your whole facial structure. They estimate that we swallow about 600 times a day, and each swallow has about 2 pounds of force exerted on the palate. So obviously over time, it can give you an overbite, or it can do all kinds of things, or the lack of it can do something. One of the things you'll see in the video is they show pictures of native peoples, aboriginals and Eskimos, and that they show the adults and their offspring. The adults that ate, non-Western foods, their own native foods, and grew up eating that. And you see that their dental arch is really wide. Their teeth are very straight. And then it shows their offspring, which have eaten a Western diet of soft foods, and their teeth are all crooked. And they probably have no room in their mouth for their wisdom teeth. They've shown that if you eat soft foods, habitually eat soft foods and no tough foods, then you don't strengthen your jaw muscles strong enough as you're growing up, and so your jaw is actually smaller. The jaw bone itself is actually smaller than it would have been, and then you don't have any room for your wisdom teeth. Anthropologists find that hunter-gatherers in the past, and hunter-gatherers that still exist, have no crooked teeth. And they have room for their wisdom teeth, but they have more wear on their teeth. And all of this is caused by eating chewier, tougher foods. One of the things I thought was interesting, I've often wondered, how it's possible that we don't have room in our mouths for wisdom teeth. How did that happen? Well, it happened in our lifetime. It's not an evolutionary development. It's only because we're eating such soft foods. When they wean babies off of mother's milk, they give them all this super mushy, super soft foods. And a lot of our Western foods are really soft. Bread, it's super, it's just really tender meat, just very soft foods, cooked foods. And what that does is it weakens the muscles, and then it alters the shape and size of the jawbone, and then there's no it's too small. There's no room for the wisdom teeth. A Harvard researcher named Daniel Lieberman did some experiments on pigs to see if he could have, because pigs have wisdom teeth too. And sure enough, when he raised them with softer foods, they also did not have room in their mouths for wisdom teeth. When the wisdom teeth came in, it made their teeth all crooked. So for becoming better looking, there's two different things to deal with. One is the position of your tongue and how you use to swallow. And the other is the toughness of your foods, or how much exercise your jawbone is getting, how much exertion it's putting on the bone, on the jawbone. So you can look up, there's a couple of guys that have created a thing called orthotropics. Dr. John Mew and his son, Dr. Mike Mew. There's a whole bunch of YouTube videos by these two guys training people to, basically it's instead, I mean, you can alter the shape of your teeth and stuff with braces, but if you don't change your habits, then your teeth can go back. So they actually have people alter their face without braces. They do it with training you to do correct tongue posture and to exercise your mouth and your jaw so that your face forms the way you want it to form. So for example, there's this gum called Phalim, F-A-L-I-M, that you can get on Amazon or whatever. And it's like unsweetened gum, but it's really hard gum, kind of chewy, very tough gum. But when you chew on it, it exercises your jaw muscles. And over time, this would alter the shape of your face. And then they train you to hold your tongue and habitually hold your tongue in the right way. And another, so, when you say the word sing and your tongue is up like that, that's where it's supposed to be. And another thing they say is the correct way to swallow is if you put your mouth in a big smile and then swallow, it forces your tongue to swallow correctly. Not that when you eat you have to do that every time you swallow, but that's just to give you a good idea of how what your tongue is supposed to do when you swallow, if you're swallowing correctly. And there's a couple of, besides just good looking, looking better, because apparently when you, not only does it widen your dental arch, which looks better on people, and make your teeth straighter, but it also, when your tongue is in the right posture, it pushes up slightly on the roof of your mouth, which brings out your cheekbones. Apparently it alters the structure that way too. But there are more practical applications of this. One of them that they talked about on that first video that I mentioned, the video called Attractive Face or Not, It Depends on Tongue Posture. He was talking about how they had one example of a kid that he was a pretty good looking kid at maybe 10 years old, and then by the time he was 14, his chin had sunk in and his jaw was kind of weak looking, and he looked very different and not nearly as good looking. They said, what happened to this kid? He looked like he was going to be a good looking teenager, and he was not. And they said what happened was that he had gotten a gerbil, and it turns out he was allergic to the gerbil, and so it clogged up his nose, and then he breathed with his mouth open. Well, if you're sleeping with your mouth open, then your tongue is not in the correct posture, and it alters the shape of your face. Another example was, and that was in the 6-foot tiger, 3-foot cage, is that a lot of times if you can open up the dental arch so that there's more room, there's basically more room in your mouth for this 6-foot tiger, then it can cure sleep apnea. A lot of times sleep apnea apparently is caused by not being enough, there's just not enough room in the mouth for the tongue. So that when you fall asleep, the tongue kind of chokes off your airway because there's just not enough room. So another thing that can happen from good tongue posture is it can actually cure sleep apnea. I watched this video a few months ago, and ever since then I've been trying to practice good tongue posture and found that it's difficult. I forget it all the time. And then I check in and I go, oh, I should put my tongue where it's supposed to be. And I put it there. And then, a few minutes later, I go, oh, there, it's not there again. And I keep doing it. And over time, I think probably, we'll see, but probably I will get more and more in the habit of doing it. But in the meantime, it is functioning like a mindfulness exercise. I'm constantly coming back to it. It's surprising how much attention you have available for your tongue. Your brain has a lot of nerve connections and stuff in your tongue, and it's a strong and active muscle, super flexible muscle, and it's easy to become aware of it and what it's doing and alter it slightly. And so it's been a mindfulness exercise, and maybe over time it'll make me better looking, or prevent apnea or whatever. But it's certainly been an interesting subject to learn about. I have never heard of it before, and I hope it's something that you find interesting too. Okay, I think that's about all I have to say on the subject for the moment. This is Adam Lee Kahn on the Atom Bomb.